Welcome to Being in Practice.
I'm Erin Davis. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a therapist.
I'm Dani Dwyer-Willingham. I use they, she pronouns, and I'm a quantum somatic coach. And we're a couple of queer, neurodivergent, multi-passionates here to get curious and unpack elements of collective and individual experiences through our intuitive, trauma-informed lenses.
We're both practitioners and people in our own constant discovery, here to provide education, entertainment, and an exploration on the practice of being, as messy and as multidimensional as it can be.
Let's be in practice together. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Being in Practice. This is co-host Dani, just letting everyone know at the very beginning that this is a podcast in which Erin and I will be discussing more sensitive topics like complex trauma, abuse dynamics, disordered eating, religious trauma and indoctrination, and other topics that might be considered more triggering depending on where you're at in your journey. If this is not the time for you to embrace these topics with us, we absolutely understand, and we invite you to come back at any other time when you do feel ready. If you are ready to join us, welcome. We promise to navigate these topics with as much care, safety, and tenderness as we possibly can as trauma-informed experts and professionals. And we are so excited to have you here with us, exploring the messy and multidimensional ways of being that we get to dive into this season and beyond on Being in Practice.
So on our first episode, I just wanted to start by kind of discussing how we got to this point. So Dani and I were planning this podcast, and we had planned out all of our topics. We've done a lot of good planning work, and I had the idea pretty last minute, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, after our first recording day, that I wanted to do maybe more of a casual or less buttoned up interview type, introduction type podcast. It's funny because I just wanted to start with this because Dani and I actually have only known each other, what has it been, 2 months?
It was end of February.
You have a better memory than me, so I'm going to rely on that.
April. Almost 3 months now.
Okay, so not quite 3 months. We've literally only known each other. Mm-hmm. No past introductions, meetings, nothing. So I just kind of wanted to start by sharing that this introductory episode, where we're going to be talking a little bit more about ourselves, and I'm learning, I feel like, at least somewhat, we've obviously talked in the last 3 months, but I feel like I'm going to be learning just as much about you today as maybe some of our listeners are going to be learning,
for sure,
and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, I don't know, I just think that's pretty special, and I'm really excited to, I don't know, it's just so in line with our podcast.
Absolutely,
the being in practice, we're doing the being again. This is just raw, we're getting to know each other and you're getting to know us, and I don't know, I just think it's really meta and really cool. So I wanted to start by kind of just giving everybody the background.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like our professional relationship sparked so quickly, but our personal relationship is unfolding right now.
Yes, and this morning, even
today,
before this recording.
And it is really cool that our listeners get to experience us witnessing each other in personal ways, kind of for the first time.
Yeah.
In real time, as we're doing this for ourselves and with each other. So I feel like it is really beautiful and an excellent idea, I might say to you, Erin.
Thank you.
Best co-host ever. So should we start with how we met? And
that's a good idea.
I feel like the way that it happened was so kismet, so perfectly aligned with what I was wanting to happen in my career and in my podcast production that I had been working on for myself. And when we met and just instantly we're we should do this, it was so cool. And I feel like it's an amazing story to share. So
do you want to share it, or do you want me to share?
Let's both share.
Okay, great.
How did you feel? Okay, let's paint the picture, shall we?
Yes.
As a
setting.
Production setting. Okay. It's a house. Erin and I know nobody except for the people that we're there
that brought us. That knew the other people there.
It was my person's friend's girlfriend's friend brought Erin.
Okay. I was wondering where you were going with that. I was like,
there were like
what
6 full degrees of separation.
Yes.
And Erin and I and our people that we were with like met in the kitchen and we're just like, hey, how's it going? Like at an awkward house party, which I hadn't done
housewarming party.
So many years because of COVID. It literally to be in a house full of complete strangers, very different practice coming out of a pandemic for sure.
What I remember about that party and meeting you was that I remember walking in with my partner, and I think the housewarming owner people they're queer too.
Yeah.
But there was definitely a mix of queer and at least what I assume was queer and non-queer people, it seemed like. So whenever I walk in a room looking like this, no matter if it's like a queer space or not,
right?
I am typically like scanning for other queers because, well, I like it, and I am very obviously queer. I enter a space and I am very obviously like, I'm not hiding my sexuality.
Yeah.
So what I remember is I walked into this house and I saw your partner, and there's this thing with like mask, I've noticed, presenting people that in spaces that are not like blatantly queer, like the gay club or a gay bar or whatever, that we're just looking for each other because we're very obvious. And so I locked eyes with your partner several times while I was like walking through and getting the house tour.
Yeah.
And then I walked into the living room, walked back to the kitchen, and your partner like reached out for me. They would. Hi. I was like, I know, we saw each other. We see you. We did the same thing.
Yes.
Like, I see you, you see me, we're gay, here we are.
Yep.
And then
we're here.
So that's what I remember, because it just felt very like they were super intentional, and it ended up, we actually ended up connecting a bit more that night, obviously, because we're here now. But that's what I remember from that night that felt like magical, or I don't know, destined, a little bit. Like
they found you, you found them, and
gunning for me. So
and then I popped up like, hello.
So that's the setting of and like we didn't know anyone else. We got each other's numbers.
Yeah.
And...
Well, if I can backtrack a little bit, I feel like I remember them pulling me in and being like, meet these people. And I was like, hello, I don't know anyone here. And you were like, me neither.
Yes, that's
And I was like, let's be friends. Like, that's literally like the second thing I ever said to you.
Is that really? You said those words?
I literally said, let's be friends.
Bad memory. I believe you. Yeah.
And then we started talking and you're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a coach. What do you do? I'm a therapist. And then it was just like, boom. We were just like, okay, this is great. And
we got into it that night too.
A long time. Yeah. I think instantly we were like, religious repression, like
trauma, religious trauma.
We're living after divorce. Like all those were just like topics number 1 and 2 and 3. And then, we like exchanged numbers, and then it was like we got our coffee, I guess a week or two later.
Yeah.
And by the end of that coffee, which I think we talked for a couple of hours, we were like, I remember you texted me afterwards being like, should we just do the podcast together? Because I was telling you how like I was wanting to start one and had been working on kind of pre-production stuff for a while. And you were like, I really want to do it too. And then afterwards you were like, should we just do this? And I was like, yeah, I think we should. So it was like literally within probably 3 hours of actually like ever spending time together, we started creating this project, which feels so amazing.
So yeah, I mean, it is amazing. It's wild to me. It feels like a lot of things in my life lately have been happening in really interesting, quick, but like intentional ways. Yeah. And so I mean, that's the background. Like we've hung out just a handful of hours at this point, honestly.
And mostly recording this now. I want to go back because I also remember in my own like processing of like what it felt like to connect with you so quickly and then want to like start a professional project with you. I feel like I was really leaning into my discernment as someone who in my previous experiences has like trusted people far too quickly
and
gotten really hurt because of it.
Totally.
I remember even kind of like bouncing off a friend being like, I don't really know this person very well. Like, I think I trust them because we seem to align on a lot of our values and like the conversations we've been able to have and the ways we've been able to even like, even in that first coffee, like navigate some things that felt like a little bit of a, you know, mismatch almost, but we were able to navigate them in like really intentional, beautiful ways, like almost like real time, like healthy conflict resolution. But it wasn't conflict. It was just like us figuring out how we would work together, or like be in relationship together.
Totally.
Like, and so I feel like I want to say both, like I trusted, because I've cultivated such like intentional and deep self-trust, like I trusted that I felt safe with you, and also was still needing to practice that discernment around like, is this a safe thing for me to do, to enter into this professional relationship with someone who like I don't know at all and could be anybody.
Yeah.
So like that was an interesting way to enter it for me, was like I both feel really good about this, and also like just being like very aware of how I felt through our whole getting to know each other process, as brief as it was.
The whole process, the whole couple hours,
few hours, the one coffee. Yeah, but feeling like just like I knew that it was right. And I feel so good about it still every day.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that. I feel like I don't have a similar experience. I kind of just go into things. I wouldn't say, I mean, it probably appears, we could qualify it as impulsive, but it probably appears impulsive, but I feel like I have spent a lot of my life following my gut, and it's never once like, I don't know, zero regrets, you know? Not that there's experiences I wish I wouldn't have had, but the experiences that I look back on that were really, especially within connections with others, that were really, you know, terrible or traumatizing or hard, were times where I actually know I was going against my gut because I'm so in touch with it. And even if I don't feel like going with my gut, even like if this failed, you know, you and me, or didn't happen, or we didn't launch, or you somehow like hurt me, I just, I don't know. It's cool because I feel like I'm leaning into pain. Like, even if this turns into like crap, or I completely unravel, like it's just another experience.
And we will have had like a masterclass in podcast production, in business relationships. So like either way, it's kind of a win.
Yeah.
Like, okay, here we are being in practice.
Yeah.
With each other.
The gut feeling though, I understand that, like, rush into things, you know, versus follow your gut.
Let's talk about this. Because we're both neurodivergent. I'm diagnosed with ADHD and a plethora of other things.
Ditto.
So I feel like because I spent so much of my life dissociated and detaching from who I knew I was, living in a state of severe and like depressive repression, understanding the difference between like my anxiety and my gut has been
that's huge.
Such an incredibly challenging process and practice that has unfolded now over many years. But I do feel like now I can trust what my body signals are, what like my reactions are. And also, again, going back to discernment, like understanding that sometimes I still have trigger responses.
Oh, totally.
But those aren't, my first reaction isn't necessarily my instinct or like my gut. Like actually being able to decipher what that is for myself is like a newer practice, because I was like always being told to like be different than who I actually was, because I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 29. Lived my whole life, went through school, like having these neurodivergencies that like I was always told was just, I don't know, I needed to be different than who I was. So I didn't trust myself for a very long time. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't diagnosed till 25 with ADHD. I think that is such a hard thing to figure out. And I still feel like I have, there's moments where it's hard to tell the difference. I don't know. I feel like from a young age, though, I've really had like a really clear, even with that stuff, like I feel very similarly. Like I grew up thinking, I had the belief I was stupid because I had ADHD. I almost got held back in the first grade because I had ADHD, but I thought it was because I was stupid. I grew up very religious and very, very Christian. Like I didn't go to a public school, I only went to religious schools, didn't go to a public school until my master's degree. Where there was, I went to church 3 times a week and chapel at school once a week. It was just, I was indoctrinated. And I don't know, it feels like it's just inherent. It's hard to explain that it wasn't always easy, and it's not like I didn't have challenges, and it's not like life is just so amazing because of it, but I do feel like I just have always had this internal drive that I can trust myself more than anyone else.
Others'
I don't know.
inputs.
Regardless of what, and it took a while to break free from the religious stuff, and it wasn't always just like I knew it and then I did it, but I just always have been making my way down my path. And I totally can see that throughout my life.
Yeah. But that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Should we go to the top a little bit, I guess? I'm like, okay, like I'm Dani.
Yeah. I'm 15 minutes in. Let's introduce
I just kind of want to say like my name, what I do,
let's hear
how old I am. I'm going to give you my astrology, obviously.
Yes, name.
And then we can just see where it goes from there. Okay, so I am Dani Dwyer-Willingham. I'm a quantum somatics coach. I know no one still understands what that means, but I promise I will tell you.
It's fine. It's fine.
I am 33, almost 34. I have a Cancer sun.
Oh, yes.
An Aquarius moon, a Libra rising. I could tell you my whole chart, but I will spare you the details. I am a queer, non-binary, white femme with a child who's 5.
Cute.
I'm a divorced single parent and co-parent. What else? I have a dog, a rescue dog, who's a gigantic fuzzy dragon.
You have a business?
I have a business. Oh, correct. Yes.
The thing that helps me live.
Yeah, my coaching practice is called Prismatic Being, and basically I work with people. I love working with especially systemically marginalized folks around like safely reconnecting with their truest selves through nervous system regulation, somatic integration, self-discovery, and then kind of like reaching a new energetic baseline of like self-sovereignty to then kind of build a life in alignment with your values.
Wow, said so beautifully.
Is what I help people do. And I love doing it, especially with queer folks. And as so many other people, single parents, all the things like, yes, but seeing my clients like thrive over a period of time is actually my soul's highest joy. One of my soul's highest joys. I would say I have like many purposes in this life.
Totally.
I am living many of them, maybe all of them. I don't know, but life is, who knows how long I'll get, but I hope that I get to live out more of them also. What else? Okay, so I was in the entertainment industry for a very long time. I started working professionally at 14. So at this point, I have been working for 20 years across multiple different industries. I started as a model, lived in Paris, Milan, New York, London, LA, all the places.
You've been around?
Been around, lived in 4 countries, been to like 35, I think.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah. Got to travel, had a beautiful career, moved to LA, was an actor for a while, moved here.
I didn't know you were an actor. That's
yeah.
Cool. I knew about the other stuff.
Was a SAG actor, was like, I actually had a production company. So I was producing, acting, writing, a lot of my own stuff, did short films, did like mini series, and then was like in films and television shows as well, and commercials and stuff like that. So
fun.
Yeah, got to travel the world doing that for like 4 years as well. And then moved here, and then life changed a lot. So I became a certified force-free dog trainer.
Okay, didn't know that either. We're
Went
learning
through,
things, guys.
I know, it's all unfolding in real time. yeah, went through like one of the world's most prestigious dog training academies, got my certification in that, had my dog training business for like 2 years.
Oh my God, you're such a Virgo.
I have no Virgo. No Virgo.
Oh wait, what is it that you are then? Wait,
I have
what's
your Capricorn.
Oh, that's
I have like a Capricorn stellium and a Cancer stellium, but Libra rising and Aquarius North Node. So anyway, I'm all over the place, y'all. Anyway,
this is very
cardinal. I'm all cardinal energy, like activating energy. So like this is me. Okay, so anyways, yeah, had my dog training business for a couple of years, had a baby, broke my whole life, my body, everything.
That would do it.
Postpartum depression, anxiety. We won't get into the details at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Cue pandemic. And
were you straight this whole time?
Okay, y'all.
This is quotations.
No, but I was married to a cis man and met him when I was 22, was still very young. Yeah, and by the time I came out to myself, I was already engaged to him. I was 25 when I came out to myself.
Okay.
I was already a parent when I came out to my husband.
Yes. Okay.
Like almost 6 years ago now.
Yeah. Wow.
And then came out to my close circle in 2019-ish.
Okay.
So like 4 years ago now, maybe. And then, then went through this whole process of like, what does it mean to be a queer person in a heteronormative appearing relationship with a child?
With a kid.
I literally had created an entirely nuclear family for myself, like a cis heteronormative nuclear family. And I was like, what do I do with this life? And I felt, my mental health was a disaster. Like I felt completely outside of my body. I remember telling a therapist, the best therapist I've ever had thus far in my life, kind of before everything started unraveling, being like, I see a version of myself that I feel so far away from. Like, I don't know how I could ever get there. And y'all, I will tell you, I am that version of myself today. It's been
I'm so happy
3
for
years.
You.
That's it. Yeah. 3 years from then to now.
Wow.
I did it. So what I did was separated from my husband. We got divorced about a year later. Started parenting separately, co-parenting, but single parenting half the time. And have been living as a happy, proud gay person out in the world for the last 2 years.
That's awesome. Oh, it's
literally love my life. So 2 years, it's so crazy to think. Oh, I know. So from like coming out to myself to living this full queer life has been less than a decade. But in between all of that, I was like married, had a kid, got a divorce. And now here we are. And found these practices like the somatic work that I do, the energy work that I do. So I became a Reiki master in 2015, which Reiki master, I kind of don't like that term because it speaks to the commodified version of Reiki that I learned. But I have been practicing Reiki now for almost a decade and then did other types of energy work through kind of like along this whole life process. So that's like the foundation of my integration work with.
Yeah, that's cool.
That brought me into like quantum somatic coaching, which is what I do now. So like timeline healing, energy healing, somatic release, emotional processing, trauma, grief recovery. So I feel like I'm now able to kind of integrate all of these like lived experiences and all of the extensive experience and trainings that I've had now, but like put it into this beautiful little cocktail that I'm like, I wish that I had had the work that I do
totally
3 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. Like, I want to be able to give that support to people. And that's what I get to do now.
It's funny how in the healing professions, I think so much, it's like definitely like, it's an old trope, a stereotype that we, the people that become therapists or anything in the healing practices are doing so to heal themselves, right? Like however that saying goes. But I do think it's true. Like, that's what you're saying right now. Like you get to do what you had wished you had had.
Yeah.
For others.
Absolutely. And I think a difference between how I practice now and like the teachers that I've had also is like, I'm so committed to anti-oppression work. I'm so committed to ethical practice in an industry that's full of very unethical people. I won't say everybody's unethical, but there's a lot of people walking around taking money for work that they really have no business doing. And I am...
Is that like in the somatics world?
In the coaching world in general.
Coaching world.
Life
yes.
coaching, wellness coaching.
The voice.
Life coaching. The
totally.
women healing wellness industrial complex. Like, fuck that. I divest.
Yeah.
And I enter that space.
And you're in it.
Being like...
with those titles.
I think, like, I'm committed to doing better. I'm committed to holding myself accountable. I'm committed to practicing ethically and responsibly. And I'm committed to not like bypassing the systemic oppression and like influences that this world and these fucking systems that we live under have influence on like everybody in their lives.
Totally.
And like why someone like me like didn't come out and like live as my true self for a long time. And like I'm like a white person with like all sorts of privilege. So
let's back up.
Yeah.
You just said that something is why you weren't able to like know yourself and be yourself.
I think because of social conditioning for me and like religious repression, which I also grew up in like an evangelical religious home and was like told literally at 3 years old that like I was going to hell if I sinned. Yes. Then it became
classic.
If you're gay, you're going to hell. Like I wasn't allowed to know what the word lesbian meant.
Interesting.
So like for me, I was like, well, I can't be that because I'm supposed to go to heaven.
Yeah.
And I was even telling a friend this last night. It felt like religious repression was literally like a force field around me. Like I remember like kissing women and pushing them off of me and being like, I can't. I cannot.
It was so like a bodily response.
Like I remember going on dates with a person, with a woman, and like realizing that we were on like our third date and being like, I can never see you again. Because I was so terrified. And that was after I left home. That was after I had already like, I was like living in London at that point.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's what we're going to get into religious.
So much of that.
Trauma.
Yeah, so much of that.
That's one of our episodes we're going to get into. But
yeah,
we definitely both have some lived experience around that. And I appreciate you sharing. Yes.
Thank you. But now your turn.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited. I feel like you did so well. I was so excited to follow up with you.
I'm so excited. You're
I don't even know what. Okay, what do we?
We started with name, title, age, and
signs and things,
and astrology.
We'll see how this goes. My name's Erin Davis. Davis is actually my married name that I kept because Davis is the 5th most common last name in the U.S. At least when I looked. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll get into it.
Wait, tell me more.
Well, okay. So my name's Erin Davis. My maiden name is Krupp, Kropf. It's German. I was adopted as a baby. So my birth mom went through an organization, picked my parents probably out of, I don't know how it works, a lineup, pictures, whatever, to take me before she had me. She had me. I was born in Portland. I've grown up in Oregon. I grew up in Albany, Oregon, but I was born in Portland. And yeah, she handed me over to my parents. There's pictures of that when I was released from the hospital after at 2 days old. It probably was for the best. It sounds like I have reconnected with my birth family. Connected for the first time since being born with my birth family. I found that like my birth mom when I was 25 in like 2014. I don't know how old I was. However old I was in 2014. She has some addiction stuff. She goes in and like has some homelessness stuff. Some pretty like debilitating mental health stuff. So that was just a really interesting experience. But I know my half sibling. I have several half siblings from my birth mom, and they were in and out of foster care growing up because of the addiction stuff. So it's a mixed bag to be adopted. And I've learned a lot of that as an adult. I didn't know all of that as a kid. It was a closed adoption, but yeah, so I'm grateful to my parents who always told me that I remember them. I think it's one of my first memories was being told I was adopted. I was like probably 3.
Oh, wow.
And I remember being really scared because, they tried their best. It wasn't they didn't like do anything scary, but it's like, you're playing one day and you walk over and they're like, yeah, so we didn't have you and you grew in someone else's tummy, like, like the kid language of you grew in someone else's tummy, but she couldn't take care of you, so now we are. And I was just like, remember being like, okay, but like trauma, like
so
instant
destabilizing
trauma
for a child's
like,
brain.
You're not my parents. I didn't even know that was like, I don't even know how to explain how weird that felt. And like, I didn't then know how weird it felt even because you have like a 3-year-old brain. But yeah, anyway, so that's a big part of my story, adoption. But yeah, anyway, back to introductions. We'll get into more of that. So I was adopted as an infant. I'm an LCSW, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I provide currently I'm doing virtual only therapy in my private practice, which is called Better Being, which is one of the things we related on that
we
night.
connected on.
There was a lot of like kismet things that happened. One of them was we both had being in the titles of
they
our
were like,
LLCs.
My practice is Better Being, and I was like, stop, mine's Prismatic Being.
Yeah, I love alliteration, fun fact, and
it's like my favorite thing.
Oh my god, we are just figuring this out right now. Actually, no, I think we talked about this because when we first met, because I was like, I like alliteration, that's why it's Better Being.
So my dog training business was Conscious Canines. Everything I've ever done has been like
I love alliteration.
Like like Danny Dwyer, even like my name.
Ooh, yeah.
I was born with it. But like, yeah, alliteration.
That's so fun.
Yay.
Oh yeah, and to back up. Oh yeah, so I kept my maiden name. I forgot I was going to share that because I feel like adoption, although I don't have it's not like I have a terrible relationship with my adoptive parents. We're not very close, but I don't know. I just have never felt super connected to my family for a lot of reasons. My adoptive family. So keeping Davis was just kind of, Krupp wasn't really my last name either. Davis isn't really my last name now. Like, it doesn't really matter. I don't know. It just never really mattered to me.
I also kept my married name, partially because of my kid, and didn't want my like maiden name involved for a long time. And now I use all of them because I feel like they're an integration of me, and also none of them really belong to me.
Yeah.
So, like, even though I wasn't adopted, I feel similarly.
Yeah. Krupp is also a really hard word to pronounce because of how it's spelled. So I like being a professional, and changing your name is a process anyway. So I just, I was like, whatever. Lots of reasons. I am a Taurus sun. I'm going to try and get this right. You're way better. Taurus sun, Leo rising, Gemini moon. Gosh, the emotions.
Yeah,
the emotions.
Yeah, you did.
Gemini moon is hard. I'm learning. What else? What else is there about me? Okay, yeah. So I grew up. I'm about to be 34.
Yeah, because our birthdays are only like a month and a half apart.
Yeah.
Same year.
May 7th is my birthday. So I'm about to be 34. I don't know. Age doesn't really matter to me, but
yeah, same. So arbitrary.
I don't know what that means, but I'm going to be 34. I kind of to go back a little bit. So yeah, I grew up really religious, very Christian, like I said. A lot of my life stuff is about my queerness, I think, historically anyway. I feel like we're kind of turning a corner, and it's just now kind of natural, but a lot of early high school to college stuff was about queerness. And I think it's interesting because when you were talking about how, going on dates, pushing girls off you, ending things after 3 dates because of this, like, you didn't know you weren't allowed to know what a lesbian was. Yeah. It's really interesting because I feel like I had a similar like knowledge base, right? I didn't actually know what like a lesbian was. I knew that like gays were going to hell from my education, right? Like, or at least that being gay is like a sin, and you can't like, you better like not be living that life. What's interesting though is no one really like talked about what any of it was. These are just like words that you'd have, like, yeah, it's like a guy that like holds hands with guys, right? Or like that lives with another guy that like is married, like it wasn't marriage back then, but right, like does life with. But like when you're little, especially when you're little and you're repressed and you don't even know what sex is, you just know that it exists and you shouldn't have it before marriage. It's really funny because I don't know how this happened, but how I interpreted all of this looking back now is somehow, I call it mental gymnastics, where I had all these crushes on these girls in high school. I didn't realize that they were crushes consciously back then. And I get to college and I make out with my first girl. The first girl I ever kissed was in college, my freshman year. And it was really exciting and really cool. And it was like the first week of freshman year, you guys. I went to a Christian university. I don't know how the gays freaking find each other, but we do. We weren't even gay back then. Anyway, made out with this girl. It was great. By sophomore year, I'd fallen in love with another girl of college. She ends up being my RA. I'm living in her hall. And then we start a sexual relationship. The funny thing is that I did feel guilt. I don't even, it's like mental gymnastics, guys. So I'm going to try to explain it. So I felt like because I wasn't, okay, so gay is a choice. I wasn't choosing to be gay. And I didn't know what gay meant. So keep that in mind. So I wasn't choosing to be gay. So even though I was having these sexual experiences with girls, I was like, well, I'm not choosing to like label myself as gay. And I didn't know that being gay meant you had sex with people of the same sex.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here.
So I was health education, everybody.
like having sex with this girl, and you know, back then I wouldn't have labeled it that, but that's what we were doing. And I was like, but I'm not choosing to be gay, so I'm not gay. And I still experienced a lot of guilt, but I wasn't sure why. But I think the church did a really good job of scaring me away from men. Like, if you get pregnant, that's really the end of the world. And sex before marriage is really the end of the world. But gay sex isn't real sex. So I wasn't having sex as a gay person. And I wasn't choosing to be gay. So I'm like having what is sex with a woman. But if sex is between a man and a woman, how am I having sex with a girl? And what does gay even mean?
Oh my God.
It's weird, you guys. Like, and this wasn't a conscious process in me at the time. I'm able to this is the first time I've explained it so well, actually, because it's mental gymnastics.
Yes.
To protect myself, to like follow my heart. Like, I was like, I just, you know, I'm feeling these feelings.
Yeah.
And feelings aren't talked about in the church.
No.
Or at least not the church I grew up in, and not my family either.
No.
And so I'm having these feelings. I'm having these like sexual, but I didn't think they were sexual experiences with this woman. And it's so funny because this is the first time I'm actually putting it together that that's why, because sex is between a man and a woman.
Wow.
So sex can't exist. I didn't know what gay was, and sex can't exist in gay land if sex is between a man and a woman.
Totally. Absolutely. And I feel like within indoctrination, we become experts at mental gymnastics of like working around things, of breaking rules inside the system to still go to heaven.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did still feel like, you know, I had the religious guilt, but so this is the more introduction. So I had this religious guilt. We were doing this thing. It felt so good, but we also had all this guilt about it. And it was like eating me alive. And looking back, it was just infatuation. And I was, you know, scared of what that meant. And then we decided we were going to tell people what we were doing. So I decided I was going to go to school counselor, which even at a Christian school is bound by the laws and ethics of confidentiality and HIPAA and all that stuff. So unless I'm hurting myself or another person, or, you know, risk to myself or another person, they can't say anything. So I went to a safe person, and I still to this day, I'm still friends with this girl on Instagram. I still to this day don't know why we decided, or if I don't remember if it was a mutual decision, but she went to the RD, so her boss essentially, and told her what we were doing. And that just like totally unraveled everything. It was like 2 months into the school year and my sophomore year, and there was we got in, you know, because you signed a behavioral contract when you go to Christian school. So I had to leave dorms. She had to stop being an RA. We had to have no contact. I had to go I got, you know, on this behavioral contract where I had to go see a counselor for every week indefinitely for that year. And then I also had to go through a conversion therapy program that was a 20-week program online, and the RD of the dorm I got moved to was like my mentor in that, so she would see these responses to these questions. It was really weird. It was like 10 to 20 questions, and each week had a theme, and I had to answer the questions, and then the mentor could see the answers to my questions and respond, and then we'd meet once a week to go over them. So I basically had like so much therapy about my gayness, but it wasn't really about it was my same-sex attraction. And I really at the time didn't want to be gay because I knew what it meant for like my family, or I had a feeling I did. And so I gave it my all. I gave conversion therapy my all, and really tried to at least I was hoping I could be bi. Really funny now to think about. I was like, maybe at least I could like be attracted to men still. Anyway, so I gave it my all, and I think it actually, I've integrated this experience because looking back, I think because I gave it 100%, and I don't know if I was just ignorant or innocent or what, but they told me it would work, or at least I had a belief that it would work, right? It would work, that I'd be converted into straightness. And then it didn't work because, less than a year later, I had fallen in love with another girl at the school, and we started a sexual relationship, and it was all, closeted, of course. But yeah, I think honestly, looking back in integrating it, it gave me a jumping off point to like kind of excel my experiences with women and my, being comfortable with my identity. It still took a long time. That was in college, and it took until 25 for me to really start telling other people. I went to grad school in 2015. I started my social work master's program, and that's when I first came out as bi to other people. That year was pretty much when I first I identified as bi. That felt safer at the time for myself in these and I've been in closeted relationships with women that whole time from college onward. I had like a 4-year closeted relationship with a woman. I'd had a 3-year closeted relationship with a woman from college through graduation. I was actually an RA at that school, and we were in this closeted relationship. Yeah, and it wasn't until like 25 that I think grad school really helped me like become more of myself. And it's been a journey since then. And then I had my first out relationship at the end of grad school in 2017, and that was a really classic like lesbian relationship, and I married her after like 4 months. We eloped.
4 months?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I met my ex-wife at the end of grad school, and it was quite a chaotic time. It was a very chaotic time. I just ended things with that 5-year person, but we were living together, and it was all very complicated, and I was like trying to finish grad school. Life was crazy, and this person ended up being an abusive person, my ex-wife. And I wasn't listening. This is the one time I was referencing earlier that I didn't listen to my gut, and I still like got into this very serious relationship very fast. We started living together after a couple months. We got married after 4 months, and then we were divorced by like month 14. We separated by like month 10. So I like to say that I like to learn my lessons hard and fast. I like to just, let's learn the lesson. Let's get over it. Let's get it over with.
Yeah.
But that was a huge learning experience. I feel like I've had to have a lot of healing from that experience, all of it, even now. Although I don't think it was the wounds I got from that experience weren't unique to that experience. It feels like the themes of my wounds are consistent from childhood. And I'm just getting better at not doing such extreme lessons.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that whole time, like I was working, I guess work background, I was working with kids primarily in high levels of mental health care. And I worked my way up through grad school to become a therapist there, and then a manager for a partial hospitalization program for kids, a lot of trauma. And that whole time, even through all those experiences, I feel like these were all happening like simultaneously and really interestingly. But I knew in both cases, I was on the right path. I knew I wanted to I knew I wanted to work with kids. I knew I wanted to work for the organization I wanted to work for. I knew I was gay. I knew I wanted to be gay. knew I wanted to become a therapist after working for that organization for a while, became a therapist, got into, eventually left that organization after 8 years, got into group practice, being a therapist, and had a new vision for my life at that point. After healing from that trauma, I got into dreaming for myself again, which was really cool. And I dreamed of a life where I only worked, where life wasn't work and life and vacation and weekends and Fridays and I got into a space, and honestly, plant medicine really helped me, and it's a big part of my experience with changing my relationship to myself, to work, to our conditioning of like how we're supposed to live life, right? Retirement, like, I don't know. I have a lot of like really big feelings now from plant medicine work on just what we're like, it unconditions your brain, and that's what it did for me. And so, I started dreaming again, and plant medicine really helped me with that I wanted every moment of my life to just be life. And I really hesitate to use even still words like work or vacation or weekends. I travel. I have days where I'm producing, and I have days where I'm not producing, and I have days where I'm having fun, and I have moments where I'm having fun, and I have moments when I'm focusing, and sometimes those are together. But I think language is super important, and I'm focused now in my practice. I feel like I do things hard and fast. So like after 2 years in 2 years in group practice, I wanted to make my own money. I wanted to own my own business, and I wanted to only be doing therapy with clients 3 days a week. And in January, I finally achieved that. Yay! So I have my own practice as of August 2022, last August, and I'm now like have the time and space to do this because of my practice, because of the schedule, because of plant medicine.
Yeah,
it's really brought me here, and that's what I specialize in now in my practice. Is my heart is really in doing preparation and integration work with specifically mushrooms and ayahuasca. And I don't sit with folks and do that currently. That is maybe part of a longer term dream, but I have access to both of those things that I work with people on going to or experiencing. And then the change that I see in my clients after they do those ceremonies or have those experiences is it's just incredible to witness. Talk therapy I love, and I do a lot of talk therapy. Not all of my clients choose to go to plant medicine, nor do I. Obviously, it's just an option that I present to most of my clients. But even the ones that don't, I feel, I think talk therapy is really helpful, but I just see so much more growth when people are ready and then wanting, and then do go to plant medicine, and we just have a whole new platform and way of thinking to work with. So it's really cool.
That's how I feel about like the energy work that I do with clients. Like it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to be like led through guided visualizations and like extractions and like working with allies and things like that, like calling in guides. But the people who do, it's so impactful, and there's such a shift in like the neural pathway rewiring of like understanding this different way of connecting with the world and with things we can't see, and like being able to then like work with people from that place is like so powerful and so different than just like the therapy or coaching that I received from like more traditional talk therapists or like career coaches, things like that. So, I also thank you for sharing all of that. First of all, amazing. You're incredible. Y'all, this is my co-host. So lucky.
We're so blessed. Ditto.
We forgot to mention at the top that both of us practice like trauma-informed coaching and therapy. So that is also like a huge part of the work that we do with people, and also the way that like I operate in life, but also like what this podcast is. So also prefacing this in our first episode, like I, again, will speak for myself and putting you a bit on the, like, up here in square one with me. But, like, I want to know if y'all are feeling things that are, that we should change, or, like, that we need to be held accountable around also in this work. Like, that's what we're here for, that's what I'm here for. Again, only speaking for myself, but I feel like, include yourself if you like.
Yes, included.
But, like, that's what I want this space to be, is like us exploring this work, the things we talk about from this trauma informed perspective as the experts that we are, while also being fully and always committed to like accountable growth.
Totally.
Ugh.
Being called in.
Yes, please.
I want to be called in always. Yeah, just I think for the folks that I work with into Just Talk Therapy, just to say this really quick, is that it's all about, I just love seeing people find themselves. And so that isn't always
such a joy.
That isn't always necessary. Like, plant medicine isn't always necessary for that. Obviously I believe in talk therapy because I do it. And so I just want to put that out there into the universe, because I love talk therapy. I have a therapist myself. I work with plenty of queer folks that just want to talk to me, and I love that too. So it's a both and, but that is what my specialty is in. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. I think, again, that's part of the beauty of being in a space like this. Like, we're creating a safe space for ourselves to explore the nuances that we experience in our lives and our practices. I remember even one of our first conversations was around plant medicine, and I've had blocks around it because I feel like self-gatekeeping myself a little bit from practices that aren't mine ancestrally and culturally. Mushrooms belong to everybody because they have been grown and used in practices all around. So for me, I feel like I've even opened up to like, there are ways to experience many different things in ethical ways.
Definitely.
And also like doing or like exploring intentionality in the ways that we inhabit all of the intersectional spaces that we move through, exist in. Like, that's what this is about, is exploring that together. And with like our people, whoever's finding us here, is like, have questions, get curious. Let's have discerning conversations around things we maybe weren't like, didn't see eye to eye on. I'm like, that's what I love. I love getting to like hear your perspective on things and like what's been so impactful for you. So, because it's so different than my lived experience. And also we've got things like, we've both been divorced. We both have neurodivergence, like this, more things we'll get into, but like I have an invisible disability. Like, we've got so many things to like bring to this work and to the world. And I'm just like, so grateful to do
that's
it
why we're doing it.
you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what motivated us, or what feels so exciting about this podcast and was a big part of why we launched into it together, is because we are aligned in so many ways, but we have obviously our own people and have things to bring to this world. The people that are here listening to us. So I know, I'm really excited too. And it's cool. I don't know. Do you feel like you learned more about me?
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel like I get to experience, this is why my practice is called Prismatic Being, because I truly believe we are all multidimensional, multifaceted humans in the world. And I love getting to witness like so many of the dimensions that have like brought you here. Today.
It's cool. I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like I definitely learned something about you, some new things I hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
And the way you talk about things is just so eloquent. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
You too. I feel like this is
great.
This is great. Pat's selves on.
Is there anything else that the listeners should know about us that we didn't get to?
I mean, I feel like there's plenty. Like,
sure. I mean, obviously
there's plenty y'all don't know. Yeah, like, I mean, we can talk about.
We got into it.
Yeah, we've both had like mental health struggles. I've had like addiction issues and eating disorder recovery and all sorts of.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really talk. I mean,
like all sorts of. I mean, trauma of literally every brand I've experienced.
Yeah.
Assault and abuse and all the things.
Yeah.
So we'll get into all of that, and also,
I'm sure we will.
I think this is good for today.
Yeah, I agree. Cool.
Thank y'all for joining. And so yeah, this has been our like kind of introduction episode. From here on in, we'll be mostly talking about a theme for each episode. First up is healing from repression. So we will get to talk authenticity. Yeah, like healing from repression into authenticity.
Yes.
One of the juiciest things. But also we've got like 11 more juicy episodes coming. So stay tuned. And thanks for being here. Bye.
Toodles.